Hello everyone. I finished reading this book about 2 weeks ago. This is Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. I was very excited when I saw this in the bookshop because I first heard about it maybe 30 years ago when I started studying psychology in A-level, and it was a classic of psychology, but I'd never ever seen it in a bookstore anywhere. And then I walked into a bookstore, as you do. I looked at the tables that are laid around with the recommended books, and this was on there. And I thought, oh my god, I know that title. Is it what I thought it was? And it was. Why have I never seen it before? Because it was only released in the UK last year, I think, published for the first time in the UK. And Maxwell Maltz was not a psychologist, or not in a professional sense. He was actually a cosmetic surgeon, a plastic surgeon, so called. And he observed that people came to him with scars through accidents, through war, through whatever, or just because they thought their ears were too big, or their nose was too big, or their eyes were wrong. And a lot of the patients had their perceived defect corrected, and it changed their lives. They became confident, they became happy. But a lot of other patients who had the defect corrected, it did nothing for them. So Maxwell Maltz came up with the idea that your quality of life is not determined by how you look, but actually how you believe you look. And so the whole idea of psycho-cybernetics is that you can change the way you feel, you can change how effective you are, you can change your rate of success, etc., through how you believe you look. And even back then, it was realized that often our brains can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. So let me read you the back because it's interesting. Happiness and success are habits, so are failure and misery, but negative habits can be changed, and Psycho-Cybernetics shows you how. I'll read you the whole thing. In this updated edition of the landmark classic, Maxwell Maltz helps you master the mind-body connection in order to turn crisis into creative opportunity and enjoy freedom from fear and guilt. I never really had a problem with guilt. With testimonials on expert techniques for relaxation and visualization, Psycho-Cybernetics shows you how to build better habits and create the self-image you can believe in, leading to the success and happiness you deserve. So, it's the self-help classic, according to The Independent, and James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, which I've also reviewed. Very good book. Maltz's work influenced nearly every major self-help professional, from Zig Ziglar to Brian Tracy to Tony Robbins. Tom Butler Bowden, author of 50 self-help classics, has sold in its millions because it provides scientific rationale for dream fulfillment. The perfect self-help book for a technical culture. I'm not sure how technical it is. Now, the ideas in here are essentially, if I was to try and distill everything, imagine you succeeding at things. Every time you have a fearful thought or a hesitation, imagine good things. It sounds really, really airy-fairy BS, but actually I think it works. Think of instances from your past, real instances where you've been the kind of person you want to be, or you've achieved the kind of thing you want to do right now that you think you can't do. I remember when I read Tony Robbins' first book, and it said, think of things you're proud of in your past, and it's the same thing he does, because by concentrating and focusing on those things, you convince yourself that you are a capable person who can do more successful things. You feel good about yourself. Reading a really good book at the moment, actually, which relates to this, but I'll review that later. Really good. I really enjoyed it. The bits about the book I didn't enjoy, and are essentially due to its context. It was written, in 1960, I think. Back then, everyone was a lot more religious, and he says things like, this must be the case because God created us this way, which now to me and to a lot of other people just is like, come on, guys. P.S. Right? God created us in His image. Blah blah blah. It doesn't matter how you look because Jesus said this. And for me, that was, those kind of bits you read over and yeah, whatever. But that was just because of the context there, the cultural and historical context. It is a very good book. I'll probably read it again. At the end of one of the things I liked about it, at the end of each chapter is a few pages to take notes. And it also says, key points to remember, and list here an experience from your past that is explained by the principles given in this chapter. If you did that with every book you read, you'd absorb and remember a lot more. I'll read this one again. on first reading, really liked it. I've used the imagining things. It's called imagination. I've used my imagination in the way directed in this book. And I must say, I felt better about myself. I've actually got a bit more done as well. I've been happier. And everybody always asks me, how come you're so happy and positive and you don't moan? I like talking to you, Ness, because you don't bitch and moan and blah, blah, blah. I was kind of like that already, but this book definitely turned it up. It is the internationally best-selling classic, Cybernetics. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. All about the science of our thoughts and how they can be measured. I shouldn't have read that. That's by the Daily Express. Anyway, it's probably not as bad as some of the others. Good book. I'll give it only because of the historical context and because it's a lot longer than I think it needs to be. But I think it's longer than it needs to be because all the bits that I don't think need to be in there are all the kind of back then science or new science, which now, based on what is really known as kind of pseudoscience, if they lost all of those books, it probably won't be as engaging a read as it has been. It might not have sold millions of copies. The book has been re-released by the now president of the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation, updated and expanded. And what's his name? Something Fury, I think. Anyway, he was a wrestler who got cut across the face with a broken pint glass, and he's set up his own business, and he used the techniques in this book because it was recommended to him by a client, became successful, ended up buying the rights to it and everything. So it worked for him, or he believes it did. Let me read you the last bit before I go. And I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. A 7 out of 10, alright? Because of the lengthy stuff I talked about. Maxwell Maltz was an internationally renowned American plastic surgeon, professor and lecturer, considered one of the most important authors in the field of psychology. In 1960, he published the first edition of Psycho-Cybernetics, about self-image and success conditioning techniques, which has sold millions of copies in dozens of languages. He died in 1975. Well worth reading. Hope you enjoyed that.